Good afternoon, morning, night, whatever it is in your neck of the world when you watch this. I want to put something across at you. Many of you haven't been wearing a mask at all, so I don't know how you can be tired of wearing a mask because you haven't even tried. And now the rest of you out there are saying we are COVID fatigued. We are tired of having to wear the masks. We are tired of having to social distance. We are tired of our businesses going under and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to put it to you straight. The reason why you're so tired of all this is because, first of all, our government downplayed COVID from the start. Secondly, that created a whole group of people across the nation who refused to wear a mask in the first place, and even business people who refused to require their customers to wear a mask in their businesses, creating a vector for the virus to spread. Now, you say you're COVID fatigued. Why don't you stop and think about the people who are sitting there manning the phones and getting calls after calls after calls from sick people who are needing 911 to come and pick them up because they can't breathe, because you were a vector to spread COVID. Why don't you think about how COVID fatigued the EMTs who come to your home to pick you up, to be able to take you to the hospital, and the firemen who come along, because in many places, when the problem is a breathing problem, not only do the EMT come, but the firemen come. Why don't you think about them, how fatigued they are, not let alone the fact that some of them are catching COVID themselves and dying because of you, who refuse to wear a mask and are now whine babying about how fatigued you are about the mask mandates and social distancing. Why don't you go work in their spot? Why don't you think how fatigued the nurses who has to receive you into that emergency room, who has to take your vital signs, who has to watch over you as you sit there and struggle to breathe. Why don't you think about how fatigued they are when they have to sit and help you to visit with your family members on Zoom while you're dying in your bed and they have to watch you die? Why don't you think about how fatigued they are? They don't get to whine and holler about how fatigued they are and stop what they're doing just because they're COVID fatigued. They have to keep on doing it. Because if they don't do it, you don't live. Why don't you think about how fatigued the doctor is who has to come in and help to put a ventilator down your throat and check on you every day? Why don't you think about how fatigued he is or she is? Why don't you think about that one? You're fatigued with wearing a mask. Many of you weren't doing it in the first place. That's why you got COVID. That's why you passed COVID on to others. But you're fatigued. You're not sitting there every day in some hospital. In some states, nurses and doctors have to watch thousands of people dying. You're not sitting there doing that. No. You're walking around and you're going about your life as normal, not giving a crap about anything, and bitching at people who do wear a mask and complain, I'm COVID fatigued. So are the nurses. So are the EMT. So are the firefighters. So are the doctors. So are every one of them people who are sitting there and having to watch you die and having to take care of you as you die. And if you're lucky, having to take care of you however long it takes for you to get off that ventilator. You're walking around without a mask, ending up on a ventilator. So the next person after you, they've got to decide whether or not they're going to put you on a ventilator or not. Or whether they're going to take you off the one you're on so that they can use it on somebody else. Because they don't have enough ventilators for everybody. But you're COVID fatigued. It's so horrible, isn't it? You gotta wear a mask and you're COVID fatigued. And you refuse to wear a mask and you're spreading the virus. You're COVID fatigued because you got a social distance. But you won't social distance, so you're spreading the virus. Why don't you think about that? And stop your complaining about being COVID fatigued. And start thinking, all of this could have been done and over with months ago. We could have been back to work. We could have had these places opened. If only all of you would have followed the rules. Wear your mask and social distance. Stop and take a look at places like Germany and Australia. Did they have secondary outbreaks? Sure. But most of the citizens did what was necessary to stop the spread of that virus. All the businesses did what was necessary to stop the spread of that virus. So they were able to keep on going. You, my dear, never stopped one time to think that if you did what was right from the start, that we would be open by now. We would have this virus under control and we would be open by now. We would have been open long before now. But many of you are Trump supporters. And you're God Trump, who is now saying you need to wear a mask. Started out with saying you didn't need to wear one. He's only said within the last few weeks that you need to wear a mask. And why is that? Because in the election, they showed that one of the biggest problems on why Trump didn't win a second term is because of the way he handled COVID. So think about that. Think about it. If he would have handled it right in the first place, been honest in the first place, told people that they needed to wear a mask in the first place, stop holding COVID spreading rallies in the first place, then maybe, just maybe, we would be better off. Like Germany was, like Spain was. Yeah, they're going through a second wave. But even at that, they're handling it better than what we have through the whole pandemic. We never got over the first wave before the second wave hit us. And because we never got over the first wave, and people were refusing to wear masks, and they were going to Sturgis, and they were going to rallies, and they were going to all of these functions without their mask on, and without social distancing. That virus ended up spreading to places like Minneapolis and Iowa, and all these places that through most of the year it didn't hit. And now it's hitting them, and it's hitting them hard, and they're wondering why. Why don't you ask the people from Florida who came up to Sturgis with COVID why? Ask them why. And why don't you ask the people from South Dakota who, from Iowa and Minnesota and all these other states who went to Sturgis with these COVID-infected Floridians and Californians and Michiganders. Why don't you ask them why Iowa and South Dakota ended up getting COVID so bad? Why don't you ask every one of you no-maskers why COVID never stopped hitting us so hard? Why don't you ask yourself? Get your mask on. Let's get through this. It's almost done and over with. We've almost got that virus here. You're going to quit now when we're at the end of it all? It's bad enough all these businesses had to stop because too many of you refused to do what was needed to protect the public. The businesses that have permanently closed now, that's on Trump, and that's on every single one of you no-maskers. It's on all of you. It's not on the person who caught COVID unless they were a no-masker. It's not on the business. And as far as you getting the help you need, that is on Mitch McConnell and Trump, who refused to handle the last stimulus package properly. Many small businesses did not get the relief they wanted, but Trump's friends got the relief they wanted. His buddies in the White House who own businesses got the relief they wanted. And now they can't even find the records on where all the money went. Wonder why? You think maybe they can't find those records simply because they don't want those records found? Because once those records are found, they'll find out that a lot of that money went to places that were unnecessary, and that a lot of businesses that ended up permanently closing down had no need to close down because of the way Trump and his administration ended up handling that money. That's why they had to close down. So why don't you think about that? Now, if you're living in Georgia and you're thinking about voting in this next election, you think about that when you're wanting to let Mitch McConnell to keep on having control. How many times has he blocked bills that were going to help you? Not only during Trump's administration from the Democrats, but during Obama's administration. How many times has they blocked things? Even if it helped the country, they blocked it. Think about that. Is that really what you want? Oh, wait. You won't admit they were blocking it because you are too far with your head up your backside that you haven't been paying attention. You have not been paying attention, or you're too soaked in your own bigotry that you haven't been paying attention, or you're too hooked on your own greed that you haven't been paying attention. You people make me sick. Our country's going to hell in a handbasket, and it's not going to hell in a handbasket because of people like Obama or Biden. It's going to hell in a handbasket because of people like Mitch McConnell, who is taking control of the Senate and giving the Republicans everything they want and blocked anything, whether it's good for the country or not. Anything, including any relief packages that the citizens of the United States needs. He has blocked them all. It's going to hell in a handbasket because even when money did come out, there was supposed to be somebody there watching where the money went, and Trump fired them so that nobody could see where that money went. Look it up. It's going to hell in a handbasket because Trump is out there not taking this virus serious because he could care less how many of you people are dead. Because he's got a way to protect himself. He's got the best medical in the world. You don't. So he could give a crap less. So why don't you think about that? Biden cares. He cares what's happening to this nation. He cares what's happening to each person who ends up on a ventilator. He cares about your kids. He cares about your wife, your husband, your grandmother. He cares about your business, your small business that didn't get the relief package that you deserved because some big Trump buddy business got it instead. He cares about your business because you're a black person. You were less likely to get that relief. Or you're a woman. You were less likely to get that relief. Because the Republicans would be more than happy to let this nation go back to where women were left at home and their husbands were their owners. Where women were property and the men worked for the family. But the problem with that is even if every woman in this nation had to stay home to take care of the home and the family, what do you do about the single women? Number one. Number two, the husband couldn't make enough to support even a 3-person family. There's no way a husband could make enough to take care of himself and the family. Because most of the time, when people are out there working, they can't even make enough to take care of themselves, let alone any dependents. So why don't you think about that? Because of all the greed, there's people out here who are suffering, trying to do the best they can, taking on 2 and 3 jobs to do the best they can. And if the freaking nation would realize that if they started paying people a living wage, there would be no need for people to take on 2 and 3 jobs, taking jobs away from other people who need them. For every person out there that's taking on 2 and 3 jobs, there's 1 and 2 people who are not getting a job they need. But those that are taking on 2 or 3 jobs has no choice. Because they can't support themselves and their family members on 1 job. So think about that. And stop your whining about being COVID fatigued. And start thinking about the doctors and nurses who are taking care of you as you catch COVID. And remember, we're almost at the end line of this, and you want to fuck it all up. I think maybe you're more concerned about your complaints than you are about this virus. You want the fight. You don't give a shit about anything else. You want the fight. You want the destruction of our nation. You want the civil war. You want all of that. So you're going to vote for whatever brings you what you want. The day it comes, you're going to start crying. Oh, why is everything so horrible? Because you can't do nothing but be the victim. Knock it off. Grow up. Put on your mask, and let's get to the vaccine when it comes. Stop complaining about being COVID fatigued, and start thinking about those who are really fatigued from taking care of thousands and thousands of patients and watching them die. Hundreds of thousands of patients they're watching die every day, they get to watch thousands of them die. Thousands! And in the last year, they've almost got to watch 300,000 people die in this nation. They've had to take care of and serve several million. I think it's like 14 million people. Really. And you're talking about, let's do herd immunity. It don't work with this virus. Because 3 months after you get the virus, you're going to get it again. There is no herd immunity to that. So think about it.